Hello out there, and I'm really excited today to be talking about the CRKT Caligo, this new for 2018 design from TJ Schwartz, because so rarely does a knife, or anything just in life, I guess, come along that really delivers on every expectation. And for me, I had high hopes when it came to this knife because the look of it and just the design and the lines, all that stuff seemed really, really great to me. And this knife has more than met every expectation that I had. And so it's a pleasure to be able to say that and to be able to talk about a knife in that capacity. So if you needed the 30-second review, that was it. But today we're going to go through every detail about the knife, my experience carrying it, all the things you need to know, including how I went about purchasing this knife. And we're actually going to start with that because when I saw this knife online, I knew immediately that I needed to get it. And I tried to find a place to pre-order it, and I couldn't. You know, the only website where I could see it was available for pre-order was the website of the designer himself, TJ Schwartz. And so I did that. I went to his website and I pre-ordered the knife. And what that did, that gave me the opportunity to get an autograph either on the blade or on the box. And you can see I got his autograph on the box. But it also got me an extra level of QC, and meaning that TJ Schwartz took a look at each of the knives that was pre-ordered through his website and made sure that it was tip-top and that it was put together well and perfectly functional. Now, I don't know what level he went to when it comes to the QC there, so I don't know if there was any extra care that actually went into this knife that the basic production knives didn't get. I don't know that. So just something to keep in mind, though, when I talk about like fit and finish and sharpness out of box and all that good stuff. All right. But what I will say is that I paid $45, I think, for that pre-order. And this knife actually retails at $33. And I'll tell you, at $45, I'm pleased with this purchase. So this knife at the $33 price point, I think, is a steal. So now let's get into why I feel that way, all the things about the knife that you need to know. Starting with the blade length, and what we have here is a 3.25-inch cutting edge. It is 8CR13 MOV. It is hollow ground. Mine was super, super sharp out of the box, just screaming sharp. So really impressed with that. 8CR13 MOV, guys. I know everybody has an opinion on it about the budget steel. I feel that it's fine for EDC. You know, I always want something better. You guys know that, but it works just fine for EDC. And in this case, since the rest of the knife is so well put together and the rest of the knife is excellent, I really can't complain about 8CR13, especially when you consider that it comes in at $32, $33 when you're purchasing it from like Amazon. So not a problem with that whatsoever. It did retain its edge pretty well. I've used this knife a whole lot. I actually sort of changed up my EDC habits for this knife because usually I'll like rotate stuff in and out between like a day or two and then get something else new in there just because I have a number of knives I'm always trying to get a feel for. But this one just stayed in my pocket for a good long while. I think it was a couple weeks where it didn't come out at all. And that really says something, you know, and this knife maintained its edge pretty well along that entire time. So no complaints there whatsoever. Since we are talking about the blade and the blade length, let's just do some size comparisons real quickly. Here is a Kershaw Leak. And here is a Spyderco Tenacious. The Tenacious is actually, even though it is a little bit longer in blade length, it is a pretty good one to do a size comparison with. You know, the Caligo is a little bit more of like a streamlined knife in that size bracket. And it comes in at a very agreeable 3.32, 3.33 ounces. So great weight for EDC, and a lot of the reason for that is that the handle scales here are this like really nice aluminum, which we'll talk about here. So the aluminum scales, they feel like that kind of aircraft grade aluminum that you have on like the Benchmade 940. They have like this powder coating on them, I think it is, so it keeps them from being too slick. What I have noticed with that though is that just in use, especially like if you have like sweaty hands or if you're in a humid environment the way that I always am here in Florida, that any kind of moisture just like shows on the knife. And you can actually see like my fingerprints will like, oh, there you go right there. You can see just like moisture from my hand will just sit on the scales and just make it slick. And that'll happen in use, so it's definitely something to be aware of. Would this knife be okay with gloves? Sure, but that's not really the point. The point is that, you know, you just will have just a little bit of slickness. But the good news is that when we talk about ergonomics, the knife does lock into the hand pretty well. And we'll get back to that in just a second. I do want to give us a little bit of a close-up, though, of this aluminum, because this stuff will wear. You know, and you can see there are just a couple spots. It looks like specks of dirt, and actually that one right here was, but here it's just a nick. You know, and this is going to nick, the aluminum will nick and show like the silvery bits of it through. You can see right here. This is just after having the knife for a couple weeks that it happens, and there's no way around it. And let me see if I can get this one focused. Yeah, because this one right here was the first one. You know, it's just going to happen everywhere. You're going to see wear on it. So definitely something to be aware of. The one thing, though, that is promising when it comes to that is that the knife is pretty cheap. So you use this, you get a good amount of experience with it, and if you beat the scales up too bad, you can always buy a new one. So there's that. And then moving on back even further, we have a one position only pocket clip. It is tip up. It is a nice clip. It carries very nicely in the pocket. Loop over. Yeah, just impressed with the clip. Retains well. No issues with that whatsoever. We do have a backspacer, but a little bit of openness here in the construction. So overall, the lines and the look of the knife, very, very good. Getting back to ergonomics, and now we'll start with the jimping. The jimping on this is interesting. It isn't as grippy as you would want jimping to be, and there isn't as much of it as you would want it to be. But I mean, if you do have the knife in your hand in this configuration, it is sort of grippy, you know, but look at the way that my thumb is when I'm holding the knife like this. You see how it's like bent like that? I really wasn't using the knife in this kind of grip. You know, I was choking up further, and so if we had jimping, I would want it to be more along the spine further down. Because when I was using the knife, it was more in this kind of grip. So, I mean, you can see my thumb isn't even touching where the jimping is when I'm using the knife in the most comfortable position. So, I don't know, something to be aware of there. But, I mean, the way that the knife feels in the hand and when it's locked in, I mean, no real hot spots for me. The only spot that could be even remotely uncomfortable after like extended use would be for me down here, just where the clip is in this area with my pinky finger. But other than that, just a very, very comfortable knife in hand. And again, that's going to be different for everybody, I'm sure, just depending on the size of your hands and the way you like to hold your knife. But for me, it has worked out really well. Let's talk about action and the detent and the lockup, because a lot of times with new knives, I want to get some information out there as soon as I can. And so I'll do like a first look or an overview or something like that. And I'm really glad that I didn't do that with this knife, because I would have had some pretty negative things to say about the action and the detent, because out of box, this knife was pretty stiff. You know, it was stiff, and breaking the detent was extremely difficult. And even now, you can still hear that sound, but it was a really loud, audible sound whenever you would flip the knife at first. I mean, you'd have that locking into place sound, but you'd have the break of the detent would be like a loud snap too. And the knife didn't even remotely drop shut. It wasn't smooth shutting in any way whatsoever. And I just thought that it was not going to be a very, very smooth knife, even though it's on IKBS. And it took me about a day of just like nonstop playing with this knife, opening it, closing it. And after about 100 or 200 times opening it, this knife started to just get really smooth. And now all that stuff with the detent, I mean, it just started to work itself out really well. And now, I mean, the knife flies open. You know, I was thinking about doing like a demonstration where, you know, I just tried to break the detent without opening the knife all the way. And at first I was able to do it. And now, if you break the detent, the knife's just going to go. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do it right now. and the knife just goes. You know, there's almost impossible to keep it from opening all the way. And it is, while it's not free dropping, it is pretty darn smooth to close. Let me try to do that again. So pretty darn good with the IKBS. I can't really complain about that at all. All right, and then lockup. I have probably opened and closed this knife well over 1,000 times at this point. Well over. And it has 0 up and down, 0 left and right. This thing is perfectly locking up every single time. And I did have slight concerns with it because the liner that we have for the liner lock is pretty thin. You know, you can see the lockup there. It's agreeable. But the liner is pretty thin, so I didn't know if this would be like the perfect, most sturdy lockup, but it is. It is absolutely excellent. So very good there. Hasn't wavered one bit in all the time that I've used it, and you know, all those hundreds upon hundreds of times opening and closing it, like the pivot is perfect. So when it comes to this knife, just the expectation was a great looking knife that would be functional, and I feel like just the level of quality that I got is far beyond that. Obviously, we're still talking about a budget knife because we have budget steel, but just the way that this knife feels in hand, the way that it performs, just the look of it, I feel it's a big bargain at $33. A really big bargain. One that I'm definitely happy to have gotten, and one that honestly, with some of the frustration that I've had with CRKT lately, this is like the shining example of what they can be. You know, what kind of budget knives they can make, and so this is why I get frustrated with some of the other stuff, because I know how good they can be, and this is definitely, like I said, the shining example of that. So $33, a big steal. Definitely one of my best knives so far this year, and I would not be surprised to see this on the list near the end of the year. All right, guys, so let me know your thoughts on it. Let me know, are you picking one up? Did you already pick one up? And any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Really look forward to hearing from you, and yeah, I will talk with you soon. Take care and have a good one.